Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on my experience with the Sony CyberShot DSC-RX100 III. Priced at $799.99, this is the most expensive RX100 that Sony has ever made, but it's also the best. Without any hesitation, I can tell you right now, this is the best pocketable camera ever made. And even though it wears a point-and-shoot label because it is a CyberShot, the RX brand really has become, in my opinion, a calling card for quality and incredible performance. And the Mark III is not an exception, but rather the new standard. So Sony has added some new things to this camera. I'll point out before I jump into menus. We've got a new lens, the same Carl Zeiss T-Star coated, in terms of branding at least, T-Star coating, but we now have a 24 to 70 millimeter equivalent rather than the 29 to 100 with an f1.8 to 2.8 constant aperture across that range. So a brighter, faster piece of glass paired with the same sensor. That's an overall improvement. We now also have an OLED viewfinder where the flash used to be. So with a simple flip of this switch right here, not only does the viewfinder come up, but the camera powers on as well, which is really cool, a nice added feature. And you can then pull out the viewfinder, so whether you're in bright sunlight or in any situation where you require an electronic viewfinder, you have it. And the EVF also does sense, much like Sony's other EVFs on their high-end cameras, usually in interchangeable models, but not reserved to that. It does sense whether you're using the EVF or not. So very cool, not only that we have the same OLED viewfinder found in more expensive cameras like the RX10, which is a $1,300 piece of equipment, but the fact that we still have retained the functionality that you would expect to be there. You know, at first I thought it wasn't going to have the sensor because I didn't physically see it, but it is there. So very cool to still have that capability, and it works exactly as it should. Always remember to actually push back the EVF before retracting it because you could technically break it. The display, I've mentioned this in my unboxing, 180-degree rotation now. So the best pocket camera in the world can finally take a self-portrait without having to use the smart remote control, which in my opinion is another huge upgrade. 5-point axis stabilization so that now we've got video as well as still stabilization that just wasn't afforded in the previous generation. Even the flash, in terms of the way it functions, is superior, not only because it's center mounted, but also just the flexibility in terms of bouncing. We just didn't have this range of motion and this ease of bouncing the flash with previous generations. So Sony's really taken note of user complaints and feedback. When I say complaints, it's really more feedback, constructive criticism than complaints. And that's why they just improved every single thing they could. Wi-Fi and NFC were available on the Mark II, but now we've got access to the Play Memory Store, so you can actually use that Wi-Fi to do more than just transfer photos and take control of your camera. Video performance, major improvement. We've got XAVCS now as a codec, which means that if you want to shoot 50 megabit per second video at 1080p, you can. And that's something that right now, the only other camera that I can do that with is the FDR-AX100 4K camcorder that I'm filming this on right now. So that says a lot about the video quality that this pocket-friendly camera affords you. Even though it's not 4K, it's the best 1080p you're going to get, then paired with an incredibly fast, dynamic piece of glass. So this is a really great kit. Audio quality, you can see the microphones right there flanking the flash, still work just as expected. If you're going to require external audio, then you're going to require it. That's not going to change anything. I did want to show you the menu system briefly so you could just see what that looks like, because it resembles every other RX100 before it and much of the RX CyberShot class. Strictly business alpha style menus, image size, all the quality, the aspect ratio. By the way, built-in neutral density filters here, another huge benefit over previous generations if you want to actually, if you desire that capability for a long exposure. Your file format, there's that XAVCS that I keep mentioning that allows you to record at 1080 in 50 megabit per second, which you'll see right there. And that's the highest 1080p mode, again, that the FDR-AX100 can record without stepping up to 4K. So that's fantastic and something to look forward to in future Sony cameras as well. The dual video record mode, your drive mode. I'm not going to really bore everyone with the menus here, but I just wanted to give a quick look for those of you that don't have access to the camera yet, as it hasn't released yet. Some core settings, zebra mode. These are all things that Sony's introduced in other cameras and carried over because they realized this is a video camera in its own right. I think initially when the RX100 launched, they didn't necessarily see the video market that the RX100 really was going to capture because of its form factor and incredible quality with that 1-inch 20-megapixel sensor, which they didn't change, as I mentioned, from the Mark II because, quite frankly, it's a best-in-class performer. With that rear illumination, that's the only change that happened. The RX100 is a front illuminated, Exmor R sensor. And you also have the Beyond X processor in here, which just makes everything run. I mean, that's the JPEG engine. That is what is driving the function, the operation of this camera. And it's in all of Sony's flagship cameras, so it's good to see it here. In fact, it's expected. So while this seems expensive at $800, I would argue that between the sensor, lens, OLED viewfinder, it's not a bargain, but a value compared to, well, the competition that doesn't exist that I would like to compare it to, but there just simply are no other cameras like it. If you're looking for a zero compromise, basic king of the pocketable camera world, you're looking at it. And for many of you, it's not even just about how great the images and video are. It's more to do with the fact that this is a go-everywhere camera. And your best camera is the one that you have with you. And in this case, you won't regret that you have something like this. And that's because it's got everything. Granted, again, as I said, we've lost a little bit in terms of focal range. That 28 to 100 was nice. We do have clear image zoom, and even though the megapixel count has stayed the same, autofocus a little bit faster from what I can see. Battery life varies based on whether you use the EVF or not, so that's another thing to take into account. Even the NFC contact point is in a better location. It was on the bottom of the camera last gen. Now it's been put on the side, which is where it should have been from the very beginning. So overall, focus good, even though we're still only working with contrast, because that 1-inch sensor is pretty much a gem when it comes to autofocusing with this Zeiss glass. So even though we've given up some range, we definitely have a superior lens to complement an already first-class sensor, which Sony finally sold rights to for Panasonic's latest 4K wonder. So still nothing really out there to compete with the RX100 line, especially the Mark III now having every bell and whistle, even the built-in neutral density filters, software that will not make you gag, but rather is easy to use, some programmable buttons, and that OLED viewfinder. I can't stress enough how usable that is in daylight. And anyone that requires reading glasses and has wanted to enjoy one of these cameras, I know you've been shooting blind this whole time. The good news is you don't have to shoot blind anymore. Granted, $800 is still a lot. Eventually this camera will be discounted. And the good news is that unlike last gen where you had to spend $450 to add a viewfinder, here it's only literally $50 more at retail launch on June 20th than the RX100 Mark II, which was $750 when it released. So there's my update for now. This is clearly the king right now of point-and-shoot cameras, and in many ways the king of the entire industry, because I do think this is going to outsell just about every other camera in its price range that isn't interchangeable, of course, that's ever been made, because this thing is just amazing. So I can live without the extra focal range. I think that's pretty obvious. Not a full review, but an update. Hope you all enjoyed. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.